They call it Scranton. What? The Electric City. Scranton. What? The Electric City.
Let's start it out. Get into the holiday season a little bit early. We're like a Kmart where they put out their Christmas stuff and it's already October. But John, I have to open the episode, and for our new listeners, sometimes the intro is not necessarily about Appalachia. So just, be prepared for that. But this is too important to not mention. John, I know I shared this with you earlier today, but it has to be said again. I'm just going to read this headline to you. Trump administration plan to use mall Santas to tout COVID-19 vaccine has been halted. And no, this is not an Onion headline. This is from the slightly conservative Wall Street Journal. So I'll read you the top line here. On Sunday, the Wall Street Journal reported that a federal health agency stopped a plan by a top Trump administration official to create an advertisement in support of a COVID-19 vaccine utilizing, quote, Santa Claus performers. The advertising campaign, funded with $250 million of taxpayer money, also allegedly promised to give those performing as Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, and elves access to the COVID-19 vaccine before it was made available to the general public. Let that just simmer for a minute. What is $250 million going to get you in advertising?
That's a good question. I didn't even think about that. I just thought about the fact that these people are going to go and tout this vaccine that they don't actually know about, and they'll be guinea pigs for it as well.
Listen, if you're a Santa Claus, maybe it's a good deal. I don't know. It's so funny that it's like the quid pro quo for them is that, if you come and agree to do this, then you'll get the vaccine first.
We're now going to have to bribe people across the country so that they can have access to the vaccine. That's the American healthcare system.
Yeah, right. We're spending $250 million on an advertising campaign when people can't afford to pay their healthcare bills. That's right. Yeah, that's that is very 2020 for you. That's very America for you. I'm just wondering, what would this advertising campaign look like? Are they going to parade the Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus around bragging about how they got the vaccine? Is it going to be a live demonstration? Is it going to say ho ho hold still while I prick you with a needle? What do you think?
Look, I think what they should do is circa 1992, I think, Lex Luger, professional wrestler Lex Luger, Hulk Hogan leaves WWE. They don't have him. He's gone. So they need a new Hulk Hogan. Okay. So they pick this guy named Lex Luger. What do they do, Chuck? Because Hulk Hogan's the...
do they vaccinate
well, probably. Him? But second, they put him on this big bus with the American flag all over it. I imagine that bus is still available. We buy it. Santa and Mrs. Claus get on it. Vaccines for everybody.
That's interesting. Roundabout way of getting there, but I like it. Very American. Brings into WWE.
I'll call Vince.
Trump loves that. Vince. Okay. Yeah. All right. I was thinking that it would be a line of children, and they would be sitting on Santa Claus's lap, and he would be asking them what they want for Christmas, and they will say, a coronavirus 19 vaccine, please. And then it's just Donald Trump standing in front of the camera saying, it's ready.
I just imagined Santa with this kid on his lap going, what do you want for Christmas? And then all of a sudden Donald Trump pops up, hits the kid with a needle and injects him. Got him. Another one.
Merry Christmas, asshole. Yeah, that's I don't know if that'd be a Christmas miracle. I think that's a Christmas nightmare, terrifying as it is. But you know what they say? He said he was going to bring back Christmas. As a real quote from Donald Trump, he said if I'm elected, we're going to bring back Christmas. We're going to say Merry Christmas again. So this could be all part of the plan. I gotta say, I was a little disappointed that this was axed, but I suppose there are better things you can spend a $250 million on, I guess.
Yeah, like going golfing.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Perfect example. Well, anyway, speaking of golfing, before we get into the show, we do have an obligation here. And John, I wanted to premise this by saying that most podcasts do their shout outs to their new Patreon patrons at the end of the show. Boo, right? Because everybody stops listening to this. I mean, we already discussed they stopped listening around the beef. So, we want people to know. We want to know that they're appreciated and that other people can hear that we got new patrons and that we appreciate them. So we're putting it, front loading it into the front of the show. John, do you want to shout out some of our new ones? We got a good bit.
This is our best Patreon month. Is that what I would call it? We have way more friends now, Chuck. Finally. It only took a podcast, but we at least got 6 more friends. They are Matt, Kirsten, Angela, Julia, Lexi, and Carrie.
Woo! Yes.
Ric Flair.
We love it. We appreciate it so much. Really helps us out a lot because this show it is not without cost to make and to put together. So really greatly appreciate that, and just means a ton to us. And just so that people know who aren't Patreon members, you can go on our Patreon, patreon.com/iPodLatcha, subscribe for as little as $1 a month, and you'll get access to our exclusive content, and we do an exclusive every week. And so last week it was about Hillbilly Elegy. Really, really great hot takes in there. And who knows what it'll be about this week. So I guess we'll find out. But anyway, thanks to the 6 of them, and really appreciate their support. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode today, which is going to be part 1 of Apodlection. There you go for the shitty puns here. Before we get into that, though, we introduced a new segment last week. Data Latcha.
Oh.
Back at it again. It survived for another week. And so this segment, I introduced a data point, has to do with Appalachia. John does not know what it refers to at the time. He gets a chance to guess. Then I tell him what it is, and we talk about it. Straightforward, simple. John, data point today, 8 billion.
8 billion.
8 billion.
The number of people we're about to hit in the world.
Hit?
Yeah, like we're about...
Like with a
No,
stick?
like population-wise.
Oh. Weird. I have no idea. So
What?
no, I don't think I don't think that's right. I don't know.
Isn't it? Don't we have
No.
7.7 billion right now?
I have absolutely no idea, but that's not what the number refers to.
Hold on. World population 7.8 billion. So
Okay.
technically I'm right.
Yeah, we're only.
No, I
200
said about to
million away.
hit.
Okay, well, congratulations for getting that correct, but that's not what I'm talking about.
I found a loophole.
Son of a. Oh, this segment's fucked. Then. It's over. It's over.
All right, tell me what it's really about.
Hey, give one more.
All right,
guess,
is
one
it
more.
Appalachian specific? Okay.
Yes, kind of. Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make this the amount of money being used for. I've got 2 options. I'm gonna say for Medicare/Medicaid in Appalachia. Broadband. Okay.
Nope. You got the
Ooh,
money part
okay.
right. You got
That's
the money
closer.
part right. So I'll
That
give
is
you that.
closer.
Give you that. 8 billion is the amount of money that Purdue Pharma is going to have to pay in federal criminal charges because those greedy bastards pled guilty in a federal court. Purdue Pharma, if you don't know, is the maker of OxyContin, and it's an opioid that has absolutely ravaged the region. That's why it's relevant to Appalachia. It's obviously it's not exclusive to Appalachia, but relevant to that. No amount of money obviously can, remedy the extreme damage and deaths that this has caused. But John, what I know that you saw this article. What did you think when it came out?
To me, it's a win for Appalachia, but I don't believe that they're actually going to end up paying the money. I mean, these companies always seem to get out of these things. They're gonna. Was this in an appellate court or was this at a state level?
It was a federal
Okay.
case, I believe, so it would have been federal charges. So I'm assuming it was. I don't recall which court it was, but whatever one it was, a federal
Okay.
court.
Well, I still think they're going to get out of paying the full amount. They'll either go bankrupt, create some sub company, do what?
Well, so, and John, one other interesting aspect of this I didn't mention in the beginning is that they actually agreed, apparently, to close down the company. So the terms of the pleading was that they will pay more than $8 billion to close down the company. The company doesn't obviously have $8 billion in cash to pay the fines, so they'll be dissolved as part of the settlement, and its assets will be used to create a new public benefit company controlled by a trust or similar entity, as they say, for the benefit of the American public. I feel like this story actually did flow under the radar a little bit because that seems pretty significant. A massive pharmaceutical company agreeing to basically dissolve itself.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously don't do that every day, but again, I'm always leery with these kind of things, especially when it comes to a company, quote unquote, willing to dissolve itself. Because it's, I don't know, I kind of believe when you cut one head off, three come back. That's the type of fear that I have with these types of things. Now, the fact that they're creating a company that's supposed to benefit the American people, that'd be, in theory, that'd be great, but I don't know if it'll come to be or not. We've seen huge cases like this in the past when it comes to the amount of money being owed, a company going bankrupt and then just creating a new one. To me, I hope that I hope that they actually do, actually do the punishment, but I'm always leery.
Yeah, well, so it all depends on enforcement of whatever the settlement agreement was, I guess. And I don't know a ton about these types of things. I haven't ever done like federal prosecution, but it seems like it would depend, especially when it comes to their assets being put into a public benefit trust. It would depend on the Justice Department and how they handle it. And so one under Bill Barr and the Trump administration, I don't necessarily trust as much as one that may be handled by a Biden administration. So because of that the election actually may impact that. I'm not necessarily saying it would because I haven't read the full terms of the settlement agreement. But if the Justice Department is in charge with overseeing that process, especially the dissolution of the company and the distribution of their assets into a public benefit trust, that would be a very important thing to note for the election, because little things like that actually really do matter, especially when it comes to Purdue Pharma's billions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if that were to become public knowledge and somebody was to run on it, I think it could maybe help sway some votes. I mean, there are some races in Appalachia that we know who's going to win, but there could be some that we see coming up that somebody could run on. Maybe Joe Biden, maybe somebody like Sam Brown. Sam Brown, I can never say his last name.
Petsonk.
Sam Brown Petsonk. Maybe he can do it because, Patrick Morrissey, we all know where he stands on pharmaceuticals. He loves them. This is is something that maybe
Delicious.
somebody can capitalize on. It might be too late in the game, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, it probably is, and this is a really, really hyper-specific issue, but I think it just kind of highlights how important even small aspects are to this government and how they build it, and something like that would not necessarily gain headlines, but would make a huge difference based on who's in charge. So that's Datalacha, big one this week. But moving into the main subject, like I mentioned, we're going to be doing a two-parter on the election. This is part one. Next week will be part two. Today, we are talking about both the recap of the debate from last week and then the implications of this election to Appalachia, which there are a lot. And finally, the places that you're going to want to watch in Appalachia that could sway the election. There are these really important pivot counties in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Georgia that you'll want to hear about and you'll want to keep an eye on, and we'll be talking about that at the end of the show. But Big John, we did a live stream right before the debate last week. What are your what are your hot takes? What are your reactions? Was it worth it? Did we get anything out of it? Did it change any minds, any hearts, sway any people?
It probably didn't sway anyone, but I had fun. I got to bitch and moan about both presidential candidates while drinking Jackie O's beer. Well, I mean, where's the downfall in that?
Well, that is the dream. So that's true.
I'm just living the dream.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I got bored during it. I'll be real with you. I thought that it was a good performance for Biden. I think that he came in there and basically did what he had to do.
You're talking about the actual debate. I thought you were talking about the live stream. You said, was it worth it?
Oh, you're serious?
Yeah,
okay, I thought you were making a joke.
That's why I said what I said. It was like, oh yeah, I think.
Damn.
And then you said it was boring. I was like, Jesus Christ, he's shooting down our own fucking segment. I was like, all right, well, I guess
Yeah, right. Well, fuck that. Never doing it again.
Everything else is canceled.
Truth. Truth. No, just kidding. Well, no, the live stream was great. It was a lot of fun. I got to drink too and bitch about the same thing as I always do, but people actually wanted to listen, so that was nice. I guess. Yeah. Sorry about that. So let's talk about the debate, since we've already dispensed with the notion that our live stream was amazing. Your reactions on the debate?
I got to be honest with you. I don't think it helped Biden very much. Actually, I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about this coming up, but I actually think that it may have done more harm to Biden than it benefited him. And it's in one key sector. We'll talk about it later. Now, when it comes to Trump,
ooh, preview, hot take.
When it comes to Trump, I mean, he was Trump. He ran his plays like he always runs them. Any given Sunday, we know what Donald Trump is going to do. Joe Biden was, I would say, good enough. He didn't wow anybody. It wasn't a spectacular performance. His base will say it is, but that's okay. I mean, obviously your base should like you. If they don't, that's a problem. It's the same with Donald Trump. His base will say the same thing, but I think overall neither candidate wowed anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Trump was a little bit more restrained this time around, a little bit. But I just I didn't see much substance to many of the arguments he made, and I think the biggest glaring thing here is that he doesn't have a plan for the pandemic, and he's been downplaying it everywhere, which we'll talk a little bit about on the implications. But I think that that's the thing that people are most interested in now, because it's affecting every single person's life. And so with that, I think he really dropped the ball and failed there. And Biden, yeah, I mean, he was good enough. You know, everybody kind of knows that this is not where his strength is going to be. And that is what it is. And I think he did enough. That's pretty much it. I mean, I really don't think that it was that consequential. And I think they brought up a bunch of different things, yada, yada. There's some policy thrown in and around there, some tweetable moments, I suppose you could say. But from by and large, I don't think it really is going to matter that much to people. I think it only reinforces just how ill-prepared Donald Trump was and is to lead through the pandemic, and that's what's on the top of every single person's mind right
The
now.
real winner of this wasn't on the stage. It was Kristen Welker. That's who the real
True.
winner. Her ability to moderate that and to push back on some of these topics. She did not let up. When Donald Trump told a lie, she was asking a significant question afterwards, saying, well, actually, that's not true. Here's why. She was really good at pointing out any type of misconceptions that either candidate was able to try and force feed to the audience. So I thought she did a really good job. She controlled everything that she needed to. I wish she would have been the moderator in the first debate. I think it would have gone much better. She was able to control. Obviously, muting the microphones helped, but she was the control factor in that.
Yeah. And I don't even think they really used the mutes all that much, I don't believe. But you're right. And, they're kind of tasked with an impossible job, and they're going to get shit from everybody always. But, yeah, I thought she did a fantastic job. So moving on from the debate, though, I think let's kind of discuss the implications of this election to Appalachia. We all know kind of the implications just in general for the United States, especially when it comes to just leadership. But let's talk about Appalachia in general. And one thing I wanted to hit on first was healthcare, because that, among other things, is on top of people's minds. We found out from the Amy Coney Barrett hearings, Supreme Court justice hearings, that there is a challenge to the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. It's going to be heard in December. It could very likely be ruled unconstitutional and be dismantled, essentially. And so I put together a little bit of statistics here. I mean, you've got 200,000 people on Obamacare in Tennessee, 270,000 on it in Virginia, 20,000 in West Virginia, and 83,000 in Kentucky. The difference here between the difference here between Biden and Trump, the result of the Supreme Court will not be different, but the effort to remedy that will. And if you elect Joe Biden, that's going to be the difference. You have a president who actually wants to retain the Affordable Care Act and not blow it out the door. I think that's the biggest glaring thing right now as far as implication goes.
I think with this too, Biden needs the Senate. I mean, obviously we know how the president, when it comes to political figureheads, is given too much power in terms of not actually having it, but us as the public perceiving them as having it. Joe Biden can do some things to stop the erosion of Obamacare, or he can help implement a new plan. Let's say it was overruled, but he needs the legislature to do that. He can't do it himself. There is no executive order that just does that. But
sure,
he has the opportunity, with being the top candidate, of helping pull Senate candidates over. So like Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, if Biden performs well there, he's going to perform well there. That's how it's going to work. It's going to be an uphill climb for Jamie, but if Biden, does well there, it only helps him. So Biden being a strong presidential candidate, I mean, people can argue whether or not he is. That's not the issue here. But right now, vote-wise, he is a strong presidential candidate. That should help the Senate when it comes to flipping it. Now, whether or not that happens, who knows? But again, those numbers actually surprised me. I thought West Virginia would be a little higher, but he's going to need help. That's basically the issue.
Yeah, and I mean, I think those are the right numbers. The number may be dated too, because I think that was just enrollments as of 2019. So it might be dated, might be wonky, but it's a significant amount of people, and nobody wants to lose their health care. That's why the Affordable Care Act has gone up in popularity since its inception 10 years ago. And I think when you think about how economically devastated this region is after coronavirus and everything else, the idea of losing your health care for those that still have it is probably terrifying. And so, again, it's the difference between a president who wants to rip it away and one who wants to build on it and make it better. It's as simple as that, and it's something that I know probably our listeners have been told this a lot, and they know it. They're not, like this isn't something that's a new breaking news, but it really is that important. So many people have insurance now because of the Affordable Care Act, and the idea of ripping that away from people, especially in a time when people are the most vulnerable health-wise probably in our lives, it's horrible.
Yeah, and I think one thing has to be made clear here. If you don't, as a voter, or, because honestly, before I went to law school, I probably couldn't have told you what this job was, but if you don't know what the Attorney General does in your state, this is one of the main attacks that is happening with attorney generals even across Appalachia. You have Patrick Morrisey in West Virginia, who is at the top of the lawsuit when it comes to trying to end Obamacare. He hates anything with the word Obama on it, but there are other attorney generals doing that too. I think Kentucky's in on it now, which is a huge issue to them.
Probably.
Tennessee, I think, has made references
sure
to wanting to at least get in on it. the people that you elect in these, because the attorney general is looked at as almost like a lesser position. It's down ballot, but it is a really important issue when it comes to challenging, these laws. And so if you're voting for Joe Biden because of, healthcare issues, you may want to look at your attorney general candidates as well, or the incumbent.
Yeah, and a good plug for a previous episode that we did. Sam Brown Petsonk, who's running for Attorney General in West Virginia, we spoke with him a few weeks ago. Go back and check that out. It's really worth going and listening, because one of the questions that I asked him was, what does an Attorney General do? Like, what power do they have? And it's tremendous, and it's especially tremendous, like John mentioned, with respect to healthcare. And it is really important. And so it's not important just to like focus on the presidency, but it's important to go all the way down the ballot. I mean, even if you're in a state where your governor's up for reelection, like North Carolina, so important, because they have power over agendas to expand Medicaid expansion, and so your state legislatures, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go through all the rigmarole of the ACA and what have you, but it's things like that, rural hospital closures, that type of thing, that really, like, elections do matter, and this one matters so much because of that. But John, you alluded to something that was said in the debate that's going to be kind of the second implication that we talk about here. So why don't you go ahead and introduce that?
The second issue to me, and I think maybe even now one of the top voting issues in Appalachia, is energy. I think Biden didn't do himself any favors by coming out and saying that he was going to transition away from oil and gas. I'm sure it's the truth. And obviously, if you look at the production of oil and gas, that's going to happen with a Biden presidency or without one. It's like coal. It runs out. It's a natural resource that you cannot continue to get from the earth once once that area is out. The problem here is that Biden has been so wishy-washy on this topic that he should have avoided it during the debate. Politicians do it all the time. If he would have been prepped correctly, then he would have been able to pivot in that question. I think one of the things with Biden in these debates, you know more about his staff than I do, right? And I know that you've talked about how good a staff is and things like that. I think his staff failed him this debate. I don't think that he was prepped super well in terms of certain key issues. He allowed himself to get backed into a corner especially on energy. That's a problem. Hillary Clinton did the same thing, and we saw what happened in Pennsylvania because of it. These are the issues that they have to be careful of, and not to allow Trump to do what he does, which is push you into a corner and force you to answer a question, because he's never answered a question in his damn life. Why should you answer a question that you know is going to hurt you? Biden is a very honest politician, which I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but he may have been overly honest in the debate, or at least overly forthcoming, because right now, I mean, Biden should have talked about how the production of oil and gas is already down. I mean, literally, when it comes in November, the output expected for oil and gas in the Appalachian region is going to be 2/3 less than what it was. It's dropping significantly. U.S. drilling has dropped to a 122-year low. Marcellus and Utica have cut production. This literally does nothing. I mean, Biden's not president. Trump's president, and it's happening under a Trump presidency. In 2015, West Virginia had about 38,000 oil and gas jobs. You know what they have now? 2,200. This is happening no matter who the president is, and I wish Biden would have pushed that.
Well, and I think it's incumbent upon him to clarify what he views on energy, and I think that he's done that throughout his campaign. He's come out with one of the boldest clean energy plans, I think, of any modern presidential candidate. And that's going to be something, when we talk about implications for Appalachia, it's going to be really important to have leadership from the top down that's focused on how to transition some of these fossil fuel economies, like Western Pennsylvania, like Southeastern Ohio, like West Virginia, to something like a more clean energy, or just like a different type of energy economy, or just that transition in general. And so I think that's kind of what's really important about this, because when you look at Donald Trump, his promises on energy is he's going to bring back the coal industry. We've talked at length, in fact, another episode plug about that, that has not been the case, and he has done nothing to really help that. And I think that those empty promises has left a lot of people wanting for something different, and electing him is going to get you more of the same. I'm not saying that Joe Biden has the end all be all for that, but from an agenda standpoint, and something that when he's elected people need to hold him accountable on, he has put out clear plans to really strengthen an energy economy that allows for a clean energy transition while still like not completely outlawing things like fracking, which would really hurt the Pennsylvania economy, for example, and kill a lot of union jobs.
He first off, why didn't he explain it like that? You know, that to me is why I think Biden lost that.
Well, he's done it on the campaign trail.
Campaign trail is not the national audience that the debates get. That's the problem. I mean, you do it on the national stage. That's when you want to perform.
Right. The important part, though, is been doing it before that, when people have been voting and before they started.
Right, and if he's gotten those,
I'm not making an excuse for him, but I'm just saying, like, it's not as, I don't think it's quite as damaging as what it could have.
I mean, I can tell you. I mean, obviously he's going to lose West Virginia. There's no there's no way that he wins.
Whoa! You want to put money on that? Breaking news.
But I can tell you this, that he only hurt the Democratic ballot in West Virginia with that debate. I mean, there were people who were starting to pivot that way, but I'm telling you, energy is the topic in places like West Virginia. So when he said that, it flipped a bunch of people to say, okay, now I definitely wasn't voting for Biden, and now I'm not voting for any of them because they're all going to want to do this. That's a problem. He should have talked about how he was going to transition it in terms of how he was going to create jobs in certain areas. So you have Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, all of these places that have large oil and gas sectors. He should have said, okay, in Tennessee or in Kentucky, I'm going to do this. This is my plan. Just give one example, because then that may give people the ability to take a breath or sigh of relief, but he didn't do that.
Yeah, I do worry a little bit about how it affects Democrats' performance in a place like Texas that has a humongous oil economy, and who is probably not going to flip for presidential, but the down ballot being really important there. In fact, Democrats have an opportunity to flip the state house for the first time in a long time, so that may come back to bite them in the ass. Well, okay, so before moving into what are the places in Appalachia we need to be watching for on election night and thereafter, the last kind of big implication here, and it's sort of the 800 million pound gorilla on the back of the entire world right now, which is coronavirus. I think yesterday was a record day for cases in this country, new cases. I'm sure today it's going to be really close to that too. The president's chief of staff came out today basically saying they don't have not even basically, like verbatim saying that they don't have a plan to stop the pandemic. And so it's clear to me that the current administration doesn't have a plan to resolve this problem, doesn't have a plan really for anything on this, which is horribly devastating to the entire country, especially Appalachia, where you have, I don't even know how accurate this number is at this point, but 250,000 people just in central Appalachia alone who applied for unemployment. I honestly don't even know how dated that number is. And you have 3 Appalachian states that are in the top 10 for most cases per 1 million population. So like per capita, essentially. This is a problem that is economically devastating for everywhere, but especially for Appalachia, where you already had economic turmoil before the coronavirus. And now with people out of work, with people sick, with hospitals and health departments strained and their resources just collapsing in front of them, an incompetent federal government that doesn't have a plan to address this, that doesn't really show that they really cared that much about it. I mean, to me, like, I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but come on, like, this is a no-brainer.
Every time that a new development happens with COVID, I just kind of look around and I'm like, how is this guy still being considered a legitimate candidate? Because the fact is, what his chief of staff said today was the worst answer I've ever heard when it comes to a crisis. He literally said, look, we're not going to control it. Let's just let it run its course. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard from anyone in a presidential staff, and that bar was set pretty damn high. But he took it. He took it. I mean, he dominated that one. The fact is, Donald Trump nor his staff know how to handle a pandemic. They don't know how to handle the White House. This is part of the problem. I mean, at some point, my God, please wake up, see what's going on. We're going to have more people die because we have an inept person who doesn't understand that we have to trust science.
It is astounding, isn't it? I mean, by every objective measure, the United States is failing, and there's no real plan for what next. You know, they're relying on a vaccine, even though the president's CDC director said that universal mask wearing, mask usage, whatever you want to call it, is more effective. But no mask mandate, no nothing. There's a culture of political partisanship associated with this that has only been fueled by the president, his administration, and a lot of Republicans in Congress, sadly. And so here we are, in a situation where we're spiking again. There's no end in sight. The economy has been significantly, beat to shit for basically 7-8 months. We are hobbling out of a bar. So the United States is basically a wino or something in a bar, and he's being beat the shit out of by everybody, and he hobbles out of the bar, and the bar is COVID. But instead of turning around and getting a cab and going home, we rock right back into that fucking bar and said, I'll have another. That was a tough metaphor, but I think we made it.
I imagine, and we're like Captain America without the superpowers. We're like, we just keep getting the shit beat out of us, and when someone says, "Are you done?" we look at them and go, "We can do this all day."
We are. This is just. It's bad. It's stupid.
Yeah.
The fact that we have people who think that masks are a way to control us. The government control. I'm not gonna get into it. We don't have to go deep in this. I mean, our listeners are smart. They all wear their masks outside. They socially distance. We know that. We know. We're preaching to you. But we need a competent federal government and competent political leaders across the board who are going to value science and not value their egos. And that's all I'll say about that.
I agree.
Great. I was worried. I was holding my breath there. I thought you were going to be like, no mask, White Claw or die.
There ain't no laws when you got the claw.
That include mask mandates, bitch.
I can't drink my claw with the mask on.
Yeah, some mom posts about that on Facebook. They're like, I can't drink the claw with my mask on. What world we live in? This is Cuba.
What?
Communist China.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, enough about that. Let's get into the parts of Appalachia that could decide this election. This is a big deal, Big John. Okay, John, I was doing some research today. I knew that Appalachia was important to the presidential election, but I didn't know that it could possibly be very important. Did you know that a single county, Appalachian County that is, in Georgia, could potentially determine if that state goes blue or stays red?
I did not.
Well, you do now. Gwinnett County. That's where we're going to start today, John. Gwinnett County, second most populous county in the great state of Georgia. Georgia is one of those states, John, where there's a lot of hype about it, where it could flip. It's been red for a long time, but it could flip and there's been more and more Democrats turning out every year. I think Hillary Clinton came maybe within like 5 or 6 points of flipping it back in 2016. This entire state, that is. And Stacey Abrams came even closer when she was running for governor. And this year, Gwinnett is really one that people are watching. It flipped to Democrat in 2016 for the first time since 1976. And the first week of early voting exceeded the county's entire early vote from 2016.
That is, I think, the 5th state I've heard that now, where it's exceeded.
And that was just for Gwinnett County.
That's nuts. If that is any indication of how important this election is, I mean, that should be the face of it right there.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening to this, Gwinnett County is part of the Atlanta suburbs. It's a donut county around Fulton County, which is Atlanta. Keep an eye on that one because that one could be interesting. If we see it trending heavily for Democrats, that is a good sign for that state going blue. Keep an eye on that one. But, John, I did want to talk about a couple of states that went for Trump last time that people are talking about could go for Biden this time, and how Appalachia is going to be so fucking important. Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You remember Pennsylvania? You remember 2016?
Oh, I
right?
do.
Did you think that Pennsylvania was going to go to Trump?
No, I thought it was secured.
I did too. And I think most people did, unfortunately. It did go for Trump. And so one thing to remember, though, about Pennsylvania, it is... I've probably done this already on this show, but as James Carville, the Raging Cajun, always said, you get Pittsburgh on one side, Philadelphia on the other, and Alabama in between. I'm sorry if that's a terrible impression. I apologize. There's better quality stuff on this show, I swear. Now, what he means by that is there's like these two Democratic enclaves, Pittsburgh on one side, Philadelphia on the other, very conservative in the middle. Turnout in those areas was not as high as it probably could have been 2016, but there's 3 counties, John, really 2 actually, that I wanted to point out that are really in the Rust Belt, but that are in Appalachia, Erie and Lackawanna. And you know what Lackawanna is because you're a big fan of The Office.
That is true. Scranton,
Pennsylvania. Scranton, what? I guess you're not a big fan of it then.
What did you say?
I said Scranton.
Oh,
what?
I can't do I don't know what they say afterwards. I know what you're talking about. It's
the Electric City.
It's
Scranton,
him and Dwight.
what?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, anyway, Scranton, the Electric City. Scranton is where Joe Biden's really originally from. Part of the part of Appalachia is in the Rust Belt. One that, boy, Hillary Clinton barely won that county where Scranton is in 2016. She only won by about 4 points. Lost Erie County by 2 points. And I will say this. So I was looking at numbers, John. In 2018, we saw turnout for Democrats, or rather, we saw the Democrat and statewide races, which I'm not saying that they're necessarily equivalent, but it's really important to look at, do 20 points better in Erie and 23 points better in Lackawanna. That is massive. And for counties like this, where they have a significant population that votes, they could really, really sway the election.
You were saying that those state legislators, I'm assuming, they did that much better than Hillary? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So this was in 2018. It was a Senate and governor year for Pennsylvania. So it was a statewide race. And they did that much better. So they did 20 points better than Hillary in Erie County and 23 points better in Lackawanna County. 2 Appalachian counties, 2 very important.
Yeah, because that's Wolf, right? Wolf won his election at that time.
And Bob Casey did too.
And Pennsylvania worries me a little bit, not because of Biden as much, but I think that there has been a really, really big pushback about how Wolf has handled the coronavirus. A lot of the citizens that I at least know that live in Pennsylvania didn't love the fact that he waited to transition the state back to being open. Now, obviously, when it comes to the science behind it, it makes sense. But when it comes to the economics behind it, people, especially business owners, were getting pretty upset. I don't know how much that's going to play, but that is a worry to me.
Well, thankfully he's not on the
Doesn't
ballot.
matter. His party is, and that's the unfortunate. That
Well, we will hope that that's not the case, but that is true. I mean, and governors, I think, in every state are being kind of put in a pretty difficult position when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm saying that he did the wrong thing. I just think that no matter what, you could be a Republican governor and you're going to have pushback from the other side. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. I think that this is going to motivate no matter what, but especially if you look at states like West Virginia and Kentucky, right? Very good examples here. Kentucky's governor did I think a pretty decent job at working on the coronavirus, however, is still getting significant pushback from the other side. Jim Justice has done a job with the coronavirus, getting a significant pushback. I think everybody is getting a significant pushback. I don't think it really matters, but Wolf could be a factor here depending on what people vote on.
It's an interesting point. It's an interesting point, and it's really going to depend on how people are motivated, and if they're motivated to the extent that they want to vote for a different party. But I think, kind of drawing back on this real quick, I think one thing I did want to point out is that, the Joe Biden campaign has been really pushing the message of Scranton Joe, right? Because he's from Scranton, really wants to kind of resonate with that middle class, working class base there that has been really like devastated economically for the past, decade or so. And I think looking at this, it being in Appalachian County, we're going to want to see how he performs there. And that will really tell you, I think, if that message resonates. Like looking at Lackawanna County, where Scranton is, looking at Erie County, where a very important working class base is, if that message resonates, we're going to see those numbers go way up. And he's going to outperform Bob Casey.
Yeah, I'm wondering how serious people are taking that too, the Scranton Joe thing. Because if you remember, like Donald Trump tried to do that with New York whenever he was running in 2016. He was, I'm from here, yada yada yada. It didn't work out. We knew it wasn't going to work out. Pennsylvania's a little different because it's a very close state. But are they buying? I don't know. I'm not there, but I always wonder how genuine people think that is.
So I think it could, and remember that it only has to be on the margins, right? Hillary Clinton only lost Pennsylvania by 44,000 or some odd votes. But with Donald Trump in New York, I mean, New York was already predisposed to vote against him. And you have a base of people who are traditionally Democrats in places like Scranton who want a reason to vote for Joe Biden or want a reason to vote against Donald Trump. Maybe it doesn't convince everybody. I mean, I'm sure that him being away from there for several decades probably doesn't help, but it may make sense on the margins, and it may, it may just remind people about his roots, and roots are important. So I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be a really interesting indicator. So on election night, when you watch those two counties, that'll be really telling of whether or not that actually stuck.
That's a good point.
The last thing I want to point out here, I know and if I bore you with the numbers, then I apologize, our dear listeners, but we try to make it interesting. In Ohio, John, is a tough state. It's a really tough state, a very important one, but very tough. Hillary Clinton lost it by, I want to say, about 8 points in 2016, 450,000 votes. And it's going to be a tough one to win back, but I think that Appalachia could be an important part of it if Joe Biden is going to win it back. And he does have a chance. He's about 3 points behind right now, and I think that's really important to point out, because if he wins Ohio, that really could seal the deal for him. And so there's three places that I wanted to point out real quick for our listeners. They're up in northeast Ohio: Ashtabula, Trumbull, and Mahoning counties. These three, I believe, Clinton only won one. She won Mahoning by about 7 points. But Sherrod Brown, when he ran in 2018, ran a statewide race, blew the doors out of those counties and won by an average of about 19 points higher than what Hillary Clinton had in each of those, and won all three of those counties. If Joe Biden can replicate what Sherrod Brown did to any extent, that could really, really put him in a very good position to be competitive and possibly win that state, because those Appalachian counties, that's where like Youngstown, Ohio is, and Ashtabula, like part of the Rust Belt, part of the manufacturing area of the state that's really been hit hard by COVID and just by a changing economy in general. It could be a real difference maker. I'm not going to say that it will necessarily, but it could be, and I want our listeners to kind of keep an eye on that. What are your thoughts?
It's going to be really tough for him to do. Brown is beloved there. I mean, it's a different level with Brown. It's a reason why J.D. Vance didn't want to get his ass kicked in an election against him.
You're goddamn right. Smartest decision J.D. Vance probably ever made.
I don't think that Biden can hit that level. He doesn't have the same connection, but that doesn't mean that him kind of going after, Brown has already established roots, Democratic roots, could help him. I mean, it really could. It could bring at least some voting back to him. I don't know how much. Ohio is really tough. If you'd have asked me in 2012 if Ohio would be Republican in 2020, I would have said no, but it's going to be tough for Joe Biden to win Ohio.
Yeah, it definitely will, and I think that's probably why Sherrod Brown will. I don't know that he's been campaigning for him, but I'm sure that he's been doing at least some things there. I know John Kasich has too. Those could affect the margins there. Now, it is a much bigger deficit from 2016 than in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan, but if you have high turnout in places like Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and you're able to shave off some of that differences in places like Mahoning County, Ashtabula County, that could make the difference. It's going to be tough, but one thing that I've been hearing from people I know that work in Republican politics there is that they're really nervous about Ohio.
Could be. I mean, there's no reason for them to look at the election as it's a sealed deal. I don't think that. I think it's going to come down to 2 to 3 points between who wins and who loses. I don't think it's going to be a runaway for either candidate. If Biden wins, I would say 2 points. I mean, I think it's going to be that close. Trump somewhere, if he wins 2 to 5, somewhere in that range, it's going to be close. But Joe Biden, depending on what he does over the course of these next few days, he could flip Ohio, but he really needs to focus on places like Pennsylvania, where he has a much closer gap, while still at least traveling to Ohio and doing the things he needs to do.
Truth. Put some stuff up in that Pittsburgh and that Erie media market and let it trickle on into that
I have a great idea. Joe Biden, I know you're listening. Here we go. I want you to go over to Pittsburgh, right? There's a little shop called Rolling Pepperoni. I want you to buy them out.
Yeah, boy.
Buy them out, Joe. Not
Hell
close
yeah.
them down. I mean, buy out all their product. Then I want you to pass that out.
Too.
Take it to Ohio. I want you to go to Ohio and say, here's a gift from Scranton Joe. And they're all licking their fingers, ready to vote. They've got their pencils out. They're filling out their ballots, and they're ready to send it in because Joe Biden would win Ohio if he gave out pepperoni rolls. I've said it before. If you put pepperoni rolls on the ballot, people will come to vote.
Yeah. That's a brilliant look. If I had a direct line to his campaign, man, I would be calling it right now. Even just this, even if he doesn't get a chance to go, which he should, great business, great people, just put out a little thing that says, I endorse
That's
pepperoni
the thing.
roll.
Why?
The margins matter, man, and that would
Why
fucking flip the margins.
Hell,
just saying.
As a Democrat, not come in to West Virginia and eating a damn pepperoni roll on camera. Come on, people. It's that simple. Eat a pepperoni roll. Why don't you eat a West Virginia hot dog, okay? Show me the money. That's what I'm saying to Joe Biden right now. Show me how much you want the vote. Eat a damn pepperoni roll. Pass them out to people. Win some votes. Win the election. Okay.
You proved to yourself that you're really a Scranton boy. And don't you come to me with those pepperoni rolls with the logs of pepperoni. Nah.
I've always said, I always said that I wouldn't vote for Trump. But you bring me that type of pepperoni roll, and I still won't, but I will not. I will be upset.
I will begrudgingly vote for Joe Biden
while I vote.
I might get a grease stain on the ballot. If there's not a grease stain, if Joe Biden's white shirt is not stained with the grease of a fine piece of pepperoni,
you know how Joe Biden wins McDowell, West Virginia? Here's how. Grease stain on the left, hot dog sauce stain on the right, or chili. I'm not in this debate. Chill out. But show up with just a little pepperoni grease and a little hot dog sauce. Boom. McDowell County, Mineral County, Tucker, all of them. Boom. Biden. He just won West Virginia. I'm assuming that's how it would work.
Yeah, I 1,000,000% agree. You want to seal the deal and you say, oh yeah, this is from pepperoni rolls. Trump said he likes the logs.
I read some.
He eats his pepperoni roll with a fork.
He hates pepperoni rolls.
I did hear that. I heard that on our Twitter, and
Right.
Twitter is always correct. Anyway, I think that the summary, if you want to summarize this whole episode, just say endorse pepperoni rolls. You'll win all these important counties. That's it. That doesn't cost you very much at all. And I know that Joe Biden's got the money in his bank account, but all you got to do, just incorporate pepperoni roll into it. You're done. You win.
I think if I ever run for office again, I'm going to do the brilliant move of just me on every sign downing pepperoni rolls. My commercials, I'm not talking. I'm just eating pepperoni roll after pepperoni roll. And you know what I'm washing it down with? A little bit of hot dog sauce. That is how I'm going to win. And Joe Biden could do the same thing. I don't know why people don't put pepperoni rolls on their campaign signs. That seems like a genius idea to me.
Honestly, we're going to have to cut that and save
That's
it for your next campaign. So here's the ad, though, real quick. It's just slow pan, zoom in on you, maybe at a picnic table, or I don't know, maybe kind of like a classroom desk at an elementary school. Just the size comparison would be hilarious, and it'll show you're really a fan of education. You just like chomping down a pepperoni roll, no words, but then in the background you hear slowly, "I'm John Eisner and I approve this message."
Oh yeah, and then by the time it's a 30-second ad, 25-second mark, you just pivot to me, camera-wise. I've got the meat sweats. I've been legitimately eating pepperoni rolls.
Honestly, it would be even better if it was the Herman Cain ad, R.I.P., when he does the slow turn.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? But it's like you with a pepperoni roll in your mouth.
Me. It's me just drenched.
And meat sweats and just grease stains.
I'm not.
Your cuticles have just Italian sausage pepperoni underneath.
I'm not wearing a suit. I'm in full gym gear.
I thought you were going to say I'm not wearing a shirt.
Oh yeah, I'm not wearing a shirt. I'm just drenched like I just power lifted 400 pounds, but instead I'm power lifting pepperoni rolls. That's why you should vote for me.
Well, that is an important and perfect campaign message for anywhere in Appalachia, and a perfect way to end the election segment right there. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. You would pay a consultant tens of thousands of dollars for them to come up with a plan like that. So bravo on us. You're getting it for free here. Pro bono. Anyway, we got to get into it. We gotta get to that last segment of the episode. Speaking of a lot, God, we talk about a lot of pepperoni. Why don't we just roll in with the meat sweats to a big, all healthy, wholesome helping of beef with big.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from Parkersburg, West by God, Virginia, it's the 18 Husky himself, Beef with Big John.
Chuck, first off, I gotta say this week's beef will not be specific. It will be something that we as a people should have beef with. That's what I'm saying here. I'm gonna be the leader, but you can help me lead. And here is why. We need people to vote, Chuck. In 2016, roughly 43% of those registered and able to vote didn't show up at the polls.
If you are not a fan of this beef, then the beef is about you.
It's true.
Boom.
Potentially, you could have roughly like 250 million people cast a vote. But that's not what happens. We know that that's not what happens. I still think turnout will be big. But if you're not voting in this election and you listen to this podcast, I really don't understand, one, why you're listening, because this is literally all we talk about.
But continue listening, though. Just, we don't want you to leave, per se.
Right. But hear me out. If you're not planning to vote, I want you to take a seat right now. Close your eyes. If you're watching this on video, you can keep looking at me. It's whatever. But here,
or you can look at me.
Why don't you look at Chuck?
I'm gonna put my image on here. You're gonna talk.
I want you to look at Chuck. I want you, and if you're listening, I want you to close your eyes. Pretend you've got that pepperoni roll sitting right next to you. Now imagine you didn't vote this election, and in 2020, or 2021, or 2022, pepperoni rolls are no longer legal. Now imagine that pepperoni roll is gone. Now that is what I call an analogy, because that pepperoni roll was your health care the whole damn time. Yeah, so first off, I want to congratulate myself. I know. I want to congratulate myself. By the way, if you close your eyes, feel free to open them now, because I think that I've just done everything I can. I want you to now go vote. If you haven't voted already, what are you waiting for? There's ample opportunity right now. Early voting has started, I believe, in every Appalachian state, except there's a couple states that are weird about it. And Mississippi, sorry, your legislature is really terrible and they don't do early voting. So that kind of sucks. But you can still show up on November 3rd. Make sure your voice is heard. If you are not excited about the presidential election, one, that's odd to me. But two, that's okay. That's okay. Maybe you don't support either candidate. That's fine. Go for the other candidates. They still need your vote. Your vote still matters. No matter who you're voting for, I don't care. Just show up to vote. Make sure, research these people. Find out who's going to help you in your everyday life and vote. If you don't vote, I don't want to hear you bitch. That's my rule. You don't vote, you can't bitch. So if you vote, you now get 4 years of bitching. That's what I allow. That's the rule.
Well, that was powerful, John. I really don't think that you could have come up with a more compelling message to vote, especially for Appalachians, but really for anybody who doesn't like a pepperoni roll. If you don't, you're Donald Trump. But with that being said, we'll wrap it up. Join us next week for our special election preview episode. We're going to be previewing some of the most important races in all of Appalachia. That's going to come out on Monday, so you'll have a chance to listen to that before Tuesday, which is Election Day. So, with that being said, we'll bid you adieu. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, check us out on all social media and our website at www.appalachia.com, patreon.com/Appalachia, and all the other ones. Thank you and good night.